Welcome to Field Talk, a Monitor Farm Scotland podcast. Join our host, Wallace Curry, as he explores the stories from Monitor Farm networks on how farmers have adapted their businesses, with support from specialists and experts, to assess farm performance and explore opportunities. Monitor Farm Scotland is farmer-led, farmer-driven, encouraging discussion and solution-based thinking.
Welcome back, everyone, to what is the final episode of the series here for Field Talk, the Monitor Farm Programme podcast. It's been a great series, actually. It's been a great few series over the past year and a bit. This series is really focused on where you have the monitor farmers. You have 9 across the 9 regions of Scotland. You also have, coupled alongside that, a management group with it, which is essentially a committee that support that monitor farmer. They can take things back to their farm. We can bring ideas over to that farm as well, and just a big collaborative peer learning, I guess, based approach, which is quite fun. So if you want to hear about how they work, the first 9 episodes in this series is where to go. And if you want to hear about the farmers themselves, the first series is where to go. So there's quite a lot of content. There's something like 35, 40 episodes now, so go and have a listen to all them. Today, we've got an important, I would say, a very important episode to end the series. The people that make it all happen. The Monitor Farm Programme doesn't just have farmers and they do the thing they're doing. There's also regional advisors that are in charge of sort of making it all run as smoothly as they do, which is who we're going to cover today. The sort of topic, I guess, today is farming, facilitation and forward thinking. And we have the three regional advisors, Christine Cuthbertson, Iona Smith and Peter Beattie on the call today. How are we all? This is all just going to be an amalgamation of voices, but how are you all doing? Happy New Year to you all.
Yeah.
I love doing that part at the start of a group call on Zoom. It's always a bit of a challenge. And for those listening, you're probably wondering, how are we going to hear anything throughout this? The plan is to sort of structure it somewhat. I won't just throw out open-ended questions to the room anymore, but I always quite like starting it that way. The theme here is to go through the 3 guys in today, cover 3 separate regions across Scotland, obviously. We'll sort of cover the focus of what their role is. We'll cover the Monitor Farm Programme itself. We'll cover these guys as well. But it's always good to start with who we are speaking to. So we'll jump straight on into that. From who's first on my screen? Christine. I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but could we have a little background on who Christine Cuthbertson is?
Hi, Wallace. Well, maybe no one in Ayrshire, maybe not. Maybe I'm getting to travel a bit wider now through this project. But I'm Christine Cuthbertson, a farmer's daughter, and been in the agricultural sector working for 30 years now, 25 years with NFU Scotland, and then I was very privileged to be taken on to look after the south cluster of Monitor, sorry, not the south, the west cluster of Monitor Farms. I was taken out on as job there in 2022. So I look after the Argyllshire Monitor Farm over in Islay, the Stirlingshire Monitor Farm in Drimmen, and the South Ayrshire Monitor Farm, the one that's closest to home.
Yep, perfect. And Peter?
Yeah, I'm Peter Beattie. I live in Dundee, not from a farming background. I first stepped on a farm probably 1975, and I've worked more or less consistently in farming in a number of roles since then. I've been involved in the Monitor Farm Programme before, back in 2008, when I was a programme manager with QMS, a very different structure. I manage facilitators. So this is a different one. This is to come back and be the regional advisor, effectively the facilitator myself, for 3 farms, the Irvines at Fraserburgh, that's the Banff-Buchan Monitor Farm, the Smiths at Strathspey at Granton, that's the Strathspey Monitor Farm, and the Deeside Monitor Farm, Clare and Duncan Morrison.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Peter. And last, by no means least, Iona.
Hi there. Thank you for having me on. Excited to be here. My name's Iona Smith. I am 26 years old and born and bred on the west coast of Scotland from a very strong agricultural background, pedigree, beef and sheep. Absolutely love that. Still involved in relief milking as well. I've been on the team since September, so I'm pretty new to it, still learning the ropes. Before that, I was in the surveying world when I left university. So very much finding my feet still, but absolutely loving it. I'm also past chair of Women in Agriculture Scotland and involved in various other things with like youth committees with the Hereford Cattle Society. So I manage the south, and I look after Barnbacco at Dumfries, Roxburgh, Cowbog, and East Lothian, Castleton.
And just back from quite an exciting journey to America, are you not, Iona?
Yes, yeah. I represented and led the UK team to the World Hereford Conference in Kansas in October. So that was an absolute honour and a once in a lifetime opportunity.
It looked fantastic. Fair play, brilliant. Well, this so just so you know, this is what this is going to be. We've got a few things to sort of cover with the three regional advisors you just met there. I'm not going to ask everyone the same question, obviously, because similar questions are going to be quite similar. There'll be some that are sort of focused at certain people, but in general, we'll just sort of go around the team and ask questions as we go. So, Peter, because for some reason you just moved on my Zoom call, I'm going to ask you this one. What is the role, just so everyone can understand, I guess, of the regional advisor? You've all sort of touched on it there, but what is the sort of day-to-day of that position?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. What I've written down in my notes is there is no typical day. We could be on the most boring side of things, just having a planning meeting, although it's always the useful place to start. But a lot of our work is just listening to what farmers want in terms of advice, meeting agendas, the setup of bringing people together, and that can be large open meetings, which we have 2 of a year on each farm, or it could be management group meetings, which is really the driving force of these monitor farms. So you're planning, you're organising, you're listening, you're persistent. You've got to be enthusiastic in this role. I think that's something that all three of us, and Grace and Beth, are. We have an enthusiasm for this role to see farmers doing well, and that you convey that just in the conversation, which with what I think are 9 of some of the most amazing farmers in Scotland. So that's where our day kind of starts, just organising and planning.
I mean, speaking of organising, I'm very rare I interview people with notes. I'm very impressed. Probably a good idea when I'm an interviewer, in fairness, Peter, because I do sometimes go off in mad tangents. Iona, to focus on, this whole series, the series is a weird word, isn't it? Because this series of the podcast, this series 4, has focused on that management group focus. So if you've sort of been listening to them, you'll understand that that's that sort of support group around each monitor farm. What's the support, I guess, from you guys' role to that management group in particular, as opposed to just the monitor farm itself?
So we all have WhatsApp groups they're always going. There's always questions asked on that. That's where we use all our correspondence goes on there, and we send out emails as well. But we work closely with each group's got a chair as well. So we work closely with them. They really help us and know, they knew the farmer from the start. And the management group as well, I should say, is a whole host of different people. It could be your vet, your lawyer, your neighbour. So it's a really good collection of people, and that gives different outlooks, different perspectives. And then I think, obviously going into the final year of this project, you've really created, strong relationships with these people. They might be your neighbour, but you're meeting up, 5+ times a year. I think the management group, they help steer it. Essentially, they help your farmer and they give ideas into it and what topics we want to cover.
And I guess it's probably best to pass to you on this one, Christine. You've spent, I think you said, 25 years there, and it's always been focused with groups of farmers. It's not just been a case of working one-to-one. Often it's been, in a few Ayrshire, for example, and then now you're focused with the Monitor Farm programme. How do you work with that? You're looking at trying to encourage learning, whether that's peer-to-peer, whether that's looking at your own business, whatever that might be. But you're also working with completely different people. You're working with folk from different backgrounds. You're working with different personalities. You're always working with not just one family, for example. How do you encourage that discussion to be open in a management group?
It's one of these old cliches, but I suppose you have to lead by example, if that makes sense. And I think honesty and trust, no matter what the personalities that you're dealing with, that cuts through everything. I am always hugely honest with people and positive, but also trustworthy. And if you set off in that way when you work with farmers, deliver what you say you're going to do. Farmers absolutely hate when you say you'll do something and then you don't do it. But life comes into play and we can't deliver everything. But if you're honest about it and say, well, this didn't happen because X, Y, and Z. I mean, when we start off with the programme, there's a lot of asks and a lot of things that they want to do. But the realities come into play, be that budgets or time. I would love to have taken farmers, across the world to see other farmers, but the reality is we didn't have the budget and the farmers didn't have the time. So I think if you've got that kind of integrity and that absolute passion just to see the best in everybody, then the personalities sort of fall into line. And the biggest thing I would say is that, I was in business myself. I've worked in a partnership and worked on my own, and no man or woman is an island. And seeking out that support from those within your community is so helpful. Ultimately, whether you take their advice or not is different, is up to you. But it's important that people have their voice heard and able to chat through things. So you never shut somebody down just because they come from a left of centre way of thinking. So yeah, and actually, see from the very minute somebody steps on farm, that's where you set the tone of the meeting. The monitor farm is very friendly, very open. You'll get a cup of tea, you'll get a chat. I always say, I'm warm and cuddly, and that's important to break down barriers for people and make them feel comfortable. Talk to everybody, make sure they realise that you really appreciate them being there, and the monitor farmers appreciate that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And to hear every man and woman not being an island is lucky. They don't have to deal with boat challenges this time of year, that's for sure. It's a it's a very good point though. I mean, it's a saying I've heard many a time before, and I like it because it's it's possible for people to feel like the proverbial island, as it were. But when you come into a group like this, then it's very much more of a all together type thing, which is good. With a focus on the specific regions themselves. Iona, we'll start with you on this one. What are I guess both the benefits and the negatives, challenges, opportunities, whatever we want to say, of the region that you're covering yourself?
So in the south, I manage Castleton, which is the only sole arable farm that we've got. It doesn't have any livestock at all. So yeah, we know the arable sector's had a lot of difficulties the past year. So it's difficult. Optimism there is a real hard one. I get that. It's hard to get out of your bed in the morning and see, how's it going to get better, because things don't look great either. We had an open meeting on Monday, and it's AHDB spoke, and it's difficult that side of it when they say things aren't going to get better anytime soon, but you just kind of have to keep working through that storm. So I deal with that, which is really it's good for my learning. Crops isn't up there with what I absolutely love and know a lot about, so it's really good for my learning with that side of it. But yeah, there's real challenges there. Again, rainfall, they've seen a hell of a rainfall this past year or so, more than they've ever had. So climate change off the back of that as well. And you labour, I would say, and across the board. There'll be similarities, of course, across Scotland that we all see in our regions, for sure. And yeah, I would definitely say that the pros outweigh the cons. The community, they're really close, that they're all neighbours, they all get on really well, and they work really well together, and they value their opinions and their views, which is really great to see. As I said, I've only been in the job a few months, but the relationships I've created already are brilliant. I knew Robert Wilson before through Hereford Cattle. I've pretty much known him all my life through showing, which was really, really nice. So it's nice working with somebody in a different aspect now. And then Richard, Dumfries, they have a wonderful group. They're really close, and his management group, there's his best friends, and they all bounce off each other. It's a really nice dynamic. So ultimately it's that community, and they're all three strong farms. But I cover quite a different area, from East Lothian all the way down to Dumfries, which is great though, and it's good for me personally. As I said, being from Ayrshire, it's a totally different bit of the country, so I'm getting to make new connections, meet new people, and just foster those great relationships in agriculture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yours seems like the most all the way from sort of prime arable
Yeah,
to prime dairy ground, as it were. I know that,
yeah,
yeah, quite an interesting shift. It's good fun.
definitely.
And yourself, Peter, in your region.
I think that diversity across the three farms in the three areas is a real feature too. I think of all our farm areas, Christine will really highlight that with with our island monitor farm as well. But we have Strathspey is close to 1,000 feet. Meikle Maldron with Deeside, the home farm there is approaching 1,000 feet, and yet he's also got farms in Inverurie near sea level, and Bruce's farm up at Fraserburgh right against the coast. So that brings real challenges for each of the farms, particularly in the year that's been. We've had everything from, I would say, everything from drought to drifts we've had across these three farms this year. Real perseverance and challenges for the farmers over that period, and I think they respond with real resilience, which we're able to reflect in the meetings, we're able to reflect in our reports and podcasts and the like. So I think that across the 9 farms there's something for most people that would listen into them. Real lessons to take on board and ideas to hear and share that just reflect what I think is what makes the job probably less challenging, which is the sheer drive and enthusiasm from each of these farmers, the families. It's not just an individual farmer, but it's family that are involved in this. So dealing with the weather, dealing with succession, dealing with some, which I won't go into, but dealing with some real family crises and challenges that people are very candid about, and yet at the same time they're also getting on and supporting other farmers, and there's huge support within the mentor group and the families themselves. And I think we feed into that a bit. We can bring people together, we can bring support and help from outside of the normal group of people that would mix, farmers and farmer friendships in a community. We can bring in other people to offer support just by the weight of being a monitor farm, being able to speak to real specialists and others and bring them in to be able to talk to groups of farmers. And you can see friendships forming, and I love that aspect of it, just to see these farms develop and new contacts and new connections, and these farms become better known, and people being able to go and learn about different farming and different systems in different areas. So it's a challenge to make sure it all keeps going. I think we'd all find that, but at the same time, the rewards are huge. It's a good job.
You wouldn't really need any form of program if there was no challenge, would you? It's the whole point of this, to try and make things better and work forward. Yeah, absolutely. And Christine, only one with an island based monitor farm as well. A big change compared to everyone as well. But what about yourself? What are the things that jump out for your region?
Yeah, so obviously the biggest challenge that I have is the logistics of getting out to Isla, but we won't go into the ferry discussion here. That's for a different chat, Wallace. But actually, the amazing thing is in the West Coast, although they're in different locations, their similarities are amazing with the 3 farms that I have, which actually makes it easier to a certain extent. So they're all family farms. They're the 3 largest farms in terms of the area and the stock that they carry across the programme. They all have round about the same number of cows, so 150 to 200 head of suckler cows. They all have large sheep enterprises of over 1,000 plus head of sheep. They all have that young, enthusiastic generation who are coming into farm, and they're all really busy people. They all have diversified businesses. So as well as the beef and sheep enterprises, John and David Andrew, they clip a lot of sheep. They've got contracts in diversification. The Duncans at Lambs at Edrum Head, they have meat boxes and also beautiful glamping pods up there near Drimmen. And in Argyllshire, they've got oyster farming and also a cafe there as well. So they're very busy people, but having that commonality, that was actually one of the big drivers, one of our key projects, which has been the virtual fencing project, because I could see quite clearly that to keep the young people wanting to keep suckler cows, something has to change. We have to try and make the job easier, because all these farms have got very good in-by ground, but they've got huge chunks of really hard to farm hill ground areas. And if we don't make it easier to farm that, the cows are just going to go off there due to economics and time and work-life balance. So that for me has been really inspirational to see what's the big cutting themes here, what's the big thing that would actually make a difference to the next generation that want to come in and farm. But a good saying is it's not what you hate, it's what you do with what you hate, and they are just fabulous at doing that. So there's a lot of commonality. There's more commonality than there is differences, if that makes sense. But yeah, the biggest challenge, without a shadow of a doubt, is island logistics. But my goodness, the folk make up for it. It's just an absolute dream to be working out there.
I obviously could never comment on such a topic, but Christine, that's two sayings from two answers. So we're going to expect a little cliche in every single one now. It's expected at this point. Not at all, not at all. Peter, you mentioned about when you were sort of answering that there about the response, when there's challenge, when there's whatever, and the way in which both the management group and also the farmers and the farming family, as you said themselves, respond to those things, whatever that might be that challenge or positive. Do you, between the three of you, and I said I wouldn't do this too much, but I'll do it here to see who wants to take the answer. Between the three of you, do you see similar ways in which management groups deal with challenge, deal with positive things coming forward? And I know there's been a session on succession. There's been various things that the Monitor Farm program's done. Do you see the way in which your regions react to whatever it is that comes up quite similar across the board, or does your regions react to changes differently?
I have three quite different Monitor Farm management groups. The D-side guys, a lot of them have known each other since young farmers' days. That's apparent. They're a young group, all of what is young, but all under 45, and they've known it. And there's been this gap, I think, for a number of them between leaving young farmers and then getting together again within the management group. But the core group members share a lot of information very candidly on WhatsApp, are inventive and creative when they come to the management group meetings. They come up with ideas that are good ideas for open meetings, good ideas for their much smaller group meetings, cluster groups or management group meetings. They're very driven to expand the D-side group. They share amongst them this desire to remain family farms, to expand their enterprises, to do well in a competitive world, and to understand where they are in the market. They're very business driven. They go up to, I would say, as well, up in Banff and Buchan, there are some similarities, but there's a wider group. And I've been delighted that Bruce started this Monitor Farm programme at Banff and Buchan, Sauchentree, as an organic farm, and moved into conventional farming in the second year. But we've retained a number of organic farmers within the management group. I think I'm hoping to bring Bruce back into the organic fold, if truth be told. But they bring so much. They bring a different perspective into it. They're very, very supportive of Bruce, and Bruce is very candid and open with them, which is why it works. And with Strathspey, I think that's a really, really interesting group as well, because Strathspey is fairly contained. Farmers are fairly contained within that area. There is this narrow band of farming. And we have, again, a wide range of small and large farmers coming to that who are, again, really supportive of, I think, what a big ambition for Strathspey is for the Smiths to do a degree of succession from Malcolm, who started off as the principal monitor farmer at the beginning, to Hamish and Callum, who are increasingly taking over the major decisions within the farm. And I think the management group are very supportive of that and very encouraging of that. And also, they have a very big, good story to tell us. Malcolm has moved from a farmer to being working for the Cairngorms National Park as an agricultural advisor. So there's huge changes in each of these, and I think throughout what you see is the commonalities. The management group has been supportive of each of the monitor farmers, and I think they also, in turn, the ideas they've come up with for the Monitor Farm Open Days have always been successful. They've got their fingers on the pulse for what people want to come to, whether it's talking about management, whether it's agri-tech, whether it's looking at beef in the northeast and whatever. They've been very good at that, and I think that's a real encouragement too.
That's sort of the vibe I've got over four series of, well, I guess I've been 3.5 series of filming this. It's just that sort of openness and, yeah, let's try it. Whereas sometimes we're maybe a wee bit sort of defensive of our own information, defensive of things we don't want to get out there. Whereas this openness sort of allows you to be much more proactive over reactive, maybe. And then when in the event you have to react, sort of doing that as a team and working through it, which is very positive, I think, in fairness. Iona, you said you've joined, within the last year as the sort of regional advisor role, I guess. What do you guys do to help both the monitor farmers themselves, but also by extension that management group, to look at new ideas, to look at sort of testing innovations, to I guess assist in making those decisions for those people that are looking at making those changes?
Yeah, very much the saying goes it's farmer led, farmer driven, but obviously we're there to do a job. So I speak to, farmers, well, quite a few times a week. We'll bounce ideas off each other and what avenues we want to go down. And I think it's farming's all about who you know as well. So I can use who I know to help to come and speak, or places like farms we can go and visit. Next week we're going to Michael Walker's. We're also teaming up with South Ayrshire for that as well. So I do think that collaborative approach is really, really important, and it brings people together. So I think, in my opinion, it's just it's about who you know, using your contacts, and keeping that momentum going. Especially, it's a 4-year program, but making sure we're keeping relevant topics that people want to learn about. But it's me I do help steer that, even though they'll tell us what they want to learn about. But we've got to make sure that we can get the right outcomes out it, and meeting the needs. Of what the group wants and what it needs to do. So I do think that's important all round. But we've covered various different topics. I do currently doing genetics at Barnback, Dumfries. We're going to, as I say, going to Michael Walker's next week. We've got a cover crop trial at Castleton and Robert. We're doing finances there. Kind of looking trajectory to the next 5-10 years of what his business is going to be like. I should have said as well that two out of the 3 farms that I manage, they've got really strong diversification businesses as well. So they juggle a lot. So, it's a lot all at once, I would say, to juggle businesses and this, but, they approach it really well.
Yeah, which is, and that approach is, I think it seems to be not the entry requirement of someone who is being a monitor farmer, but it's certainly got to be one of the desirable traits.
Pretty open-minded, don't you? Yeah, open-minded.
Exactly, that's
and
it.
Looking like farming is so, it's ever changing, isn't it? Everything that's happening in the world. So I do think you have to have that open mind perspective. And as Christine had said about the virtual fencing, I was there last week at the conference. As I said, I wasn't there from the start of it, but it was great. We had a dinner and we all spoke down in different groups of the different farmers who've all been involved in it, and it's amazing to see just the confidence that people have gained, obviously, with that project, and how it's changed the landscape and their farming business for the better. So that it's really positive. It shows how you can use technology, to a real advantage.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And Christine, Iona sort of touched on there you know, that bringing in who you know and utilizing that network. Can you tell us a wee bit about that? You know, you're bringing in specialists. You're also bringing sort of not only just individual people who are involved in a specialist in a certain topic, but also that sort of industry partners, I guess, as well as sort of that's a really hard word to say. Strengthening. That shouldn't be a hard word to say. Around that farmer with that management group, and then by extension, also that management group, I assume, plays somewhat of a role, maybe not intentionally, but in that local community as well. So just talk to us a wee bit about the people involved out with the named roles, I guess.
But I think that's the important thing. You see, to me, this project is, or the Monitor Farm, it's actually about people. It's a people project. And one of the things is, you can have all the technology and all the different things that you can do, but if it's not conveyed in a way for farmers to be able to understand and how to use it, then you'd be as well not bothering. So a lot of it is getting the people who can actually communicate with farmers the right way. I don't know whether it's we're just genetically different as farm folk, but we're very much visual learners. We don't have the time or the patience to sit and read a report. We want to learn, we want to see, we want to know. You were involved with Rhett Wallace with me. You'll know the same with the kids. If you actually get your hands on and do things and see it, then you will succeed. So an example would be in Argyllshire, Craig out there was really wanting to make most of his grass. There's a lot of challenges out there in terms of climate and goose challenges as well, and was looking at rotational grazing along with his great stocksman Thomas out there. But to actually do that, it was getting the right person, and the right person was Michael Blanche. Now, Michael Blanche and Craig are two different people. That not in different. Yeah, they are two different islands, for want of a better word. But what was identified was how Michael could communicate with Craig to help him with rotational grazing, and it was all done through social media, through WhatsApp. So sharing videos, actually showing this is what it looks like. This is how you get to do it. There was absolutely nothing written down on that. No reports, nothing. It was all done through good communication, and that's making sure you get the right people and identifying the right people. And when you do that, and the monitor farmer gets it and understands that, quickly shares to the wider group. It's a kind of like an osmosis that just goes through. So, Craig knew what he was doing with the support of Michael. There was mistakes. And I think that's one thing. I'm going to do another wee one of Cammy Wilson. You win or you learn. Absolutely. The only way farmers have got this thing where when you do something, it's got to be right first time. Well, that's not life. That's not how you learn. You learn by things going a bit wrong and sharing that with other people. And you might need to bring somebody else in who's experienced that challenge. Well, how do I get over that part? It could be that for rotational grazing, it could be I need to look at my water supply here for these fields. So you need to bring in the expert for the guys that can do water pumps. And then other farmers see that and they can challenge back or question and think, how is that going to work on my farm? I'm not sure if I've answered the question there, but if you see what I mean, it's just that kind of osmosis and actually reaching out and sharing ideas. And then a lot of the time the farmers will say, well, I had a problem with that, and this is the person who I spoke to. And these people that you bring in are the ones that just know how farmers tick, and actually go out and show them how to do it, or show how their farm's different and how they need to find a solution.
Peter, sort of focusing on, sort of I asked Iona there about the innovations occurring, and then Christine looking at the people involved. All of that sort of sets that groundwork, that foundation for progressing forward. So could you tell us some examples of some of the sort of positive shifts you've seen in those in the monitor farm management groups across the board? And maybe you want to speak about your region, and if Christine and Iona have any to add in for theirs, that would be great. It doesn't just have to be business getting better. That can absolutely be one sort of technical additions. Also look at a difference in mindset and the way you sort of focus on your business, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most challenging questions. I would appreciate Iona, Christine's input into this as well. I would say that the first year, maybe 2 years of the monitor farms, there was, I would say it was in some ways quite conventional. We're looking at cattle health, sheep health, land management, soils. As it's progressed, and it's no longer a 3-year program, but a 4-year program, this 4th year, certainly, I think with the other farms as well, but certainly up in the northeast, we've seen an increasing focus and interest in how you change your business, how you change what you do. And it's gone from just the technical stuff that you might see on a farm to some of the incredible innovation and opportunities that come from, say, the virtual farming, a virtual fencing project. The ability, and that comes with a change in mindset as you look at using technology on your farm to make a difference. But that then also comes with, how can I afford this? Have I got time to do this? What skills do I need as a monitor farmer? What skills do my family or my staff need in order to take the farm in the next to the next level? And that comes also with again, the notion that the confidence to say, we believe in the livestock sector, say in the northeast, we believe in sheep, we believe in cattle. We're using the figures we've collected in the first couple of years and beyond to look at how we expand. Where do we find funding? How do we diversify? What do we need to do with getting ourselves in a stable position, either whether it's succession or feeling stable within the workload that you're managing, or what skills do I need to go on to the next step? Do I need to be a manager and not just a farmer? Can I manage with a different staff group because we've got challenges around about staffing? How do I retain staff? And these increasingly greater and stronger business approaches to farming businesses is something when I was in the program before, 15 years ago, I don't think we got quite to that same level, either with the individual farms or with the management group, recognizing and requesting and asking for. We did a play on succession planning last year. We've got one of our accountants in one of the management groups has formed a 4-stage piece of work called Driving Your Business, where we get the farmers hear from the perspective of a solicitor, an independent financial advisor, an accountant, and a banker, and how they are your dream team to take your ambitions forward. So I think we're seeing a lot of optimism as well. I think there's people are voicing their optimism in the livestock sector, more so I think even than they did at the beginning of the program. I think they're confident that they can play a part too in expanding herds or improving calving percentages and live calves to sale, and understanding more about the whole supply chain and where they sit within it, and also being able to take control as well. I think there's more confidence about taking control of the business and who they sell to and who they buy from and how they know that they're profitable with their stock and with their enterprises or with the business as a whole. So all that's been really encouraging to see, as I say, and I think it's confidence, enthusiasm, candidness. It's a lot of features, and understanding the business even better than they did at the beginning. All of these things come together, I think, and it's been great to be part of encouraging that and sharing enthusiasm and bringing people together to help make that happen quicker, I think, than it would have done. They're all entrepreneurs. They would have got there, but I think we've helped speed that up, and that's been a feature of almost all the Monitor Farm programs going back to 2003.
Peter's spoken, I guess, very well across the board there. But Christine, Iona, is there anything else that jumps out on top of that as well for I guess, your region?
I think what I would say is that small changes can lead to really, really big shifts. And what I've noticed across all 3 of my farms, that you can get certain blocks and it's establishing what those blockers are and what can help. So, for example, at Lansdowne Head, when the soil analysis come back, the pHs were quite low. So there was a requirement for an investment in lime, which is a cost without a shadow of a doubt. But also the block was that they're in a very, very narrow road. It's all bulk tipper delivered now, lime. So that was a challenge to actually. So if something's a challenge or there's a block, it's quite easy to say, just you never get round to it. Just put it off, put it off. But when the reality is sitting there in front of you and the figures are saying something, and there's never such a big driver as when you're having folk come to your farm to make you do something. That so they built they cleared an area that they could turn the tipper in and load it, and the results for that are dramatic in terms of that they've got a reseeding program going because the pHs are getting up. They've got fodder crops, so from getting rid of that wee block, that's just how you can drive the change. And the only way you'll get rid of that block is by asking for a bit of help. We're all really bad for saying that this, or chatting it through. What can we do to get over this? And once you've done that, once you've said, actually, it's okay to ask for help or to seek guidance, or because how would you know to do a lot of things unless somebody shows you? It's a whole, learning process, and we learn all our lives. I mean, they always say, and here's another one: the day you stop learning is the day you die, and that is absolutely true. And another one would be Craig and Isla, who, when we started the project, had a bricky a phone that was not a smartphone, was only put in a lorry if he was going across to the mainland. And with that, I suppose in the background, we can encourage and support and help, and sometimes say, come on, just get a smartphone, we'll help you with it. And that's amazing. Craig is doing videos for people and, could actually do that learning, him and Thomas, with the rotational grazing out there by having that technology in their hand. But if you've got a wee block there, you need support to get over that, or you'll never get round to it. You'll never do it.
Yeah, very good point, actually. Have you anything to add on that one, Iona? Or is...
Yeah, no, two standout ones for me. Slightly, obviously, before when I started, a colleague, Maura, that did the job before me, she was involved in a big project down at Dumfries, a lambing project that, has massively helped Richard's business, lowered lamb mortality, things like that. Looked at how they do their lambing, should they do it outside, should they not? That then work-life balance comes into that as well. How do they work it staffing wise? But that uncovered a lot and has ultimately made his lambing better, which is more profit. Knock on of that, more money in the bank, more lambs to sell. So that's a really positive one. Another one, a big one for me that was a shocker, but we couldn't believe it because Robert Wilson's a staunch Hereford man. He got an Angus bull, and his first calves will be on the ground in March. So that's really exciting that he's now going to be crossing, the Angus with the Hereford. So that's throughout, his management group and going down different avenues and seeing what else he can do in his business, and he's opened up numbers as well. So things like that, it's really exciting. But that's not just, they've not just decided that themselves. It's the Monarch Farm group and the management group that's helped push that forward and put these ideas. So I think we've all mentioned that confidence is a real big one, and it's just giving people that boost of confidence and help. I think we all need it. We like having somebody at the side of us that's possibly done it, and it gives us that bit of push along, or they can give good advice. And that's really important, and just having that community. So I think all these projects that have been involved across the Monarch Farm just shows that just with a bit of ambition and confidence in yourself and having the right people around you, you can achieve great things.
Listen, guys, it's been great because I think it's, the last 9 episodes, or the first 9 episodes, I don't know how you would say that. Actually, I don't know which one that is, and I don't know which one sounds right now. And now I'm getting caught up in something that doesn't matter. Of this series is, as I've said a couple of times, focusing on that management group in particular, and you hear all these stories from people that are involved in those management groups, which is what this whole series is. And I'm like, how does this all tie in? How does it all tie in? There's so much going on. How do you focus on it when you're just actually turning on to a meeting here and there? And there's so much more to it than that, as we sort of went over. And you guys are the ones to thank for just that, I think. But we'll sort of try and draw the episode to a close as we sort of come on with a few more things that I want to touch on. Sort of the whole focus of the last few minutes of these episodes, I think the whole way through, really, I've certainly intended them to be is that looking forward. That's the whole point of everything we're doing here is being better tomorrow than we were today. I started stealing Christine's thing there, taking a shot. Try and sort of move forward, be better in the future than we are at the minute. And I guess the question I'd put is, and I'm going to put this to all of you, because I think it's important to hear. I'll go with Christine first because she is at the top again. What do you think the key challenges are for farmers in the next, decade, 5 years to 10 years? What do you think the key challenges we'll be seeing in Scotland, but also by extension the UK, and maybe even with a particular focus on your regions yourselves?
Without a shadow of a doubt, it's climate. It affects farmers every day, and there is no such thing as a season anymore, particularly in the West Coast. The weather is not in our control, but how you manage your farm is. So we've definitely seen that shift, particularly in the West Coast, back to stock that is more native in type. Personally, the days of big, heavy continental cattle, bigger is better. I think there's going to be a shift back to your more resilient native breeds that have a lower impact. We use the term regen. I don't really know what that means, but certainly there's going back to more a traditional way of how you farm, and going back to what my grandfather's generation knew about how you do things, making the most of your grass. There's a huge reliance on like bought in products onto a farm. So I think it is going back to basics, getting good foundations, getting your lime on, getting your nutrition right, and with the climate changing, that means that you have to maybe do things at different times of year. Get your silages analysed, because they are going to be hugely variable year for year, and that's going to impact on the nutrition. Folk are going to have to be really, really, really on the basics and the fundamentals, and get them right to be resilient to what the weather is changing. Get the basics right, and then focus on the technologies that you can use to support that. So, for example, it is going back to, like, say, the virtual fencing or rotational grazing to make the most of what you have during your growing season, using virtual fencing to exclude fluky areas, for example, because we've got an over-reliance on the medicines to treat these things. We've got resistance. So one of the big things that we've really focused on is, where are you just now? What's the basics, and what is the fundamental issue you've got to rectify there before you go and spend money? Because there's an awful lot of folks spend money on things that are not actually fixing the problem. So test for fluke, analyse your silages, test your soils, know where you are, and then you can be more dynamic. And with that, it's something we probably haven't touched on, but it's a whole subject in itself, is what all Mathery farmers are going to be doing this year, is your enterprise costings. If you know how much something costs you, you can make an informed choice as to what you do. When do you buy? When do you sell? You can be more fluid, especially when you've got challenging weather circumstances as well. So for me, climate, weather, without a shadow of a doubt.
Iona, what do you think? It's quite a comprehensive answer from the Christine there, but there might be some other things left.
I agree, totally agree with everything Christine would say. I'll go down the labour and education for myself, getting people into agriculture, showing the benefits of it, the wonderful benefits. I think it needs to be taught from nursery, primary one, where your food comes from, where there's milk, bacon, all the rest of it, your steak and things like that, where it comes from, because so many people don't know. So it's just educating that younger workforce, and then going to school the events, having SRUC maybe more presence, or or farmers there that are able to offer work experience, things like that, and showing the true benefits of having an outside job. You're bringing life into the world, seeing all these different sides to farming, and from working in a tractor to being in a milking parlour to doing all these wonderful benefits that they can have. I just don't think it's pushed enough, in my opinion. So I do think we need to do that, because we do. One of the biggest problems in agriculture is labour shortages, because I wholeheartedly believe that farmers do need time off the farm. It's good for your mental health. We haven't touched, that's a massive subject. You need to go off the farm, holidays, days away, and come back and reset. That's huge. And other things, I'm always a big believer on it. Sport, time off the farm, having something different away from it. Sport's a great one. You can all those different things you can let off. Endorphins is what I'm looking for. Let that off, some steam, and come back. So I do think that all comes into educating and time away. The other thing is, obviously, we've got a change in government coming. Well, we'll see if that happens. But yeah, policy changes, rising costs, things like that. It's all up in the air that we don't really know. The inheritance tax as well is a huge thing. I do think I've tried to spin that on my head. We talk about that a lot in the management groups, but we have to look to the positives of it, and it'll maybe get slipper farmers, people like that, to get things changing in farming, people out of farms, give younger people a chance to get in and have the chance to farm on that degree. So we'll have to look to the positives. We can't always be doom and gloom on that side of it. But yeah, no, I do think it's we look to the future, and let's hope that there's going to be positives coming out of these things, and it'll be great for farming.
Yeah, excellent. I always love to hear we nod to education as well and getting folk in. That's
Thought you
always an important thing as here in any sector. We're focusing on
Yeah.
agriculture, but absolutely in any sector. And Peter, the ladies have done a good job of covering a lot there. Is there anything you've got left?
Yeah, I think looking at what's been said very much with Christine too, it really nails what I think is going to be done and discussed in this last year of our monitor farms up in the north east as well. We had a really interesting couple of sessions with Gavin Hill, SAC, talking on his perspective of beef in the northeast. That was yesterday. And I think from that came some really interesting perspectives from, again, some very dynamic farmers and farm businesses that were at the meetings. And where they see challenges going beyond the end of this programme and maybe looking at the next 5 years to 10 years, their own personal management skills, so important to gain these if you're looking to expand your business, particularly if expansion means bringing on new staff, particularly skilled staff, or sometimes expanding while maintaining the same number of staff, so they're spread out over a wider area and they've got a bigger work load or greater skills needed. So that really came up. I think also knowing your market. So what you see is that some of the most successful farms that come to the northeast, they have a particular business model and they know their market and they're distinguished as a particular type of farm. So people are coming to them because they're not just selling into a market anywhere, but they've got buyers. They've got people that they collaborate with. Collaboration is was a big discussion. How do you move from working individually to gaining the benefit of collaboration, the strength of collaboration and cooperation? Do you do that formally? Can you do that formally and find that brings benefits? Because to the farmers that are coming to our Monitor Farm meetings, maintaining entrepreneurship. And now they're young, they're in their 30s, maybe early 40s. 10 years from now, they're middle-aged or past middle age. And I've had more than one conversation saying, I hope I can keep my youthful entrepreneurship and encouragement through into an older age, to keep looking to diversify, keep looking to move forward, keep looking to be enthusiastic. I think the other really interesting bit that comes from certainly from the D-side group is the challenge of negativity in the industry. Last year, we had our farmer management group moaning about people moaning about industry. And what we realized is that two negatives should make a positive. So it set the scene for the management group as we talk about the positives. We talk up the importance of the livestock sector in Scotland and in the Northeast in particular. And I would say that these management groups and the open meetings and everything reflect the positivity in the industry, because that is essential to carry forward.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. And whether that's, somehow reading that into people as that person themselves, as you say, as they get older, but also then sort of around them and making it a narrative that's just what's there, entrepreneurship, progressive, whatever the words are we're saying, making sure that sort of environment, that feeling is there. Listen, guys, we spoke here for about an hour, just sort of chatting about the role of what you guys do, but also that management group as a whole. Just to sort of tie it up and guess sort of draw the episode to a close. It would be interesting to hear one thing from you all, just a sort of snappy, quick answer what you think when I say this to you. So if someone was to ask you, what would be the legacy of the program, this program in particular, that you've been running? Iona, I know you've only been here for a few months, but you've got a gist of what's happening, obviously. What would be the legacy of the program that you would want to be left by this past 4 years of Monitor Farmers? Who wants to go first? I'll leave it open to whoever wants to.
I'll fire on here then. Positivity. You've got to be positive. And if you've got that, then you've got the right attitude and outlook. It's taken me 51 years to realise how positive a person I was. So, yeah, I hope the farmers will continue to keep the radiators round about them and not the drains, if that makes sense. I'm going to have to finish on, another wee cliche is it's Burns night and Sunday night, but all the gift that God would give us to see ourselves as others see us, So it took me a while to realise that folks saw in me was a hugely positive person, and hopefully the legacy that will be left across the three farms from the farmers themselves, who are hugely positive and look, don't spend your time moaning, spend your time looking for a solution.
Yeah.
I mean, what Christine said there, for those that don't know Christine, is perfect, but she has lied because she's actually only 35 years old. I don't know what that other number she was talking about was. Iona or Peter, who wants to jump in?
Strong, positive drivers for agriculture. Again, the positivity shines through here, doesn't it? But yeah, people that can pave the way for hopefully, the next set of monitor farmers and beyond. And yeah, I think we're creating something really special. And the people that are monitor farmers right at the start, to people that are doing it right now, it's leaving a real legacy. And I think that's something really special, and it shows that things can be achieved when you put your mind to it. The great things.
Yeah, very good. And to end us off, Peter, what would be the legacy of your program?
Well, I think we, myself, management group members, everybody else that's come to Monitor Farms, and particularly the Monitor farmers, have just gained such a unique set of perspectives. I think it's a huge privilege to just step out onto others' farms and hear how candid farmers are about sharing their challenges and their hopes and concerns and going forward their plans. And my hope is that this continues with these groups way beyond the end of the conventional Monitor Farm programme this year.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. It's been a pleasure having you all on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Wallace.
Thank you. Yeah, enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
I'm glad. And for those of you listening, Christine did also say thank you, but she was muted. I don't think she realised.
Thank you, Wallace.
Sorry for that, Christine. I realised it would be obvious you hadn't been heard. But yeah, for those listening, that's been Christine, Peter, and Iona sort of wrapping up what's been a really good series there, covering the management groups. As I said at the start, if you're wondering what this is all about, series 1 was about the monitor farmers themselves. So they would come and have a chat about the farm and the sort of progression through at that point. This podcast started right on the 3-year birthday. 2-year birthday, right on the halfway mark. So we were talking with them then moved into sort of different projects and innovations being seen in series 2, and then you'll enjoy series 3 the best because I wasn't the host. We had a much better voice then when I was out in China, and that sort of covered various things, looking at resilience, looking at succession, and various other projects there. And then this series, as I've said, has been focusing on that management group and those around it, i.e. these guys here that make it all happen and make the magic work. So thank you for listening to another series of Field Talk. Thank you for the last 10 episodes and last 40 episodes, I guess, depending on how you like to look at it. The end of this year, or this batch of monitor farmers, is upon us. It is 2026 that they'll finish their 4 years. And if you're interested, maybe have something to consider there. And maybe we shall see you for another episode soon. So thank you very much for listening, and we shall potentially see you then.
Thanks for tuning in to the Monitor Farm Scotland podcast. As we head into the final year of the programme, we'll be taking a short break after Series 4. Our upcoming Series 5 will be returning in the summer, celebrating the monitor farmers who have driven change, challenged themselves and shaped the future of their farms over the past 4 years. Their stories, reflections and lasting legacies are all still to come. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To stay up to date with our latest news and events, visit the Monitor Farm Scotland website and follow us on social media for regular updates and insights into what our farms are getting up to. Monitor Farm Scotland is funded by the Scottish Government and managed by Quality Meat Scotland and HGB.